Welcome to Original Being, where we explore the timeless wisdom of ancient practices and old ways of living, from holistic health and wellness to survival techniques, homesteading, and primitive skills. I'm Jillian Aries, a functional and holistic-minded physician associate and a homesteading mother of 3. I am on a quest to reconnect with this knowledge our ancestors lived by, practical skills, natural healing, and self-sufficiency in a modern world. Each episode, I'll be sharing insights, experiences, and conversations with experts and everyday people who embody this mindset. Together, we'll challenge modern conveniences, embrace hands-on learning, and rediscover the practices that have stood the test of time. Disclaimer, the information shared on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. My opinions and those of my guests are solely our own and are not affiliated with any institutions, employers, or certifications. This podcast does not provide medical advice, and any health-related decisions should be made in consultation with your personal healthcare provider. By listening, you acknowledge that you take full responsibility for your own choices and actions. Our guest today is Dustin Matthews. He holds a bachelor's degree in physical education and a master's in education from Plymouth State University. He also played and coached football there. He later earned a master's degree in Maharishi's Vedic science and most recently a master's in screenwriting from MIU as well. Dustin's life took a transformative turn when he discovered Transcendental Meditation, a practice that profoundly changed his path and perspective, deeply influencing both his personal and professional life. He is currently a professor of health and wellness and a career services counselor at Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa. And he's also my cousin. Happy to have you here today, Dustin.
Thank you, Jill.
So why don't you give us a little background when we talk about you started in football and coaching, and I think that was your dream career initially. I'd like to hear that backstory and then how this whole thing transitioned to you finding meditation and sort of changing your entire life path.
Yeah, played football and baseball in high school, and then going into college, just wanted to keep playing sports. But, at a kind of a young age in my senior year of high school, started going into drugs and alcohol a little bit and making some bad decisions. But ended up going to college, Plymouth State University, to play football. Played there, got off drugs for a while, was still drinking and partying while playing football. And then in my last 2 years when I was playing, kind of went a little heavier into the drugs and alcohol, and it became really bad. Almost overdosed when I was 21, and that kind of opened my eyes to there being more than football. And I had hip surgery, and I've separated both my shoulders, so I had a lot of injuries. And basically it came down to a point where I was like, all I wanted to do was play football, as from the age of 17 to 22, 23. And when I realized my college career was ending and that wasn't going to continue into a professional career, I was just kind of questioning my own identity and purpose and reason for living, and didn't have really anything else that I had been passionate about or pursuing in my life. My whole identity and purpose was kind of wrapped up in being an athlete and being a football player. And after almost overdosing, I started, I had this experience where I felt like my breath was kind of leaving my body and I had to breathe it back in. And then I just prayed for God to I'm like, all right, I'm sorry, I've messed up, save me. I don't know what else to do. So after that night, it was about, that was kind of like the start of me realizing all right, I need to get my stuff together. And a few years after that, I got clean and sober. Quit alcohol and cocaine. Those were the two things that I was mostly addicted to. And I just started this journey of sobriety that kind of sparked some interest in self-help, personal development, meditation. And when I first started meditating, I was coaching football. So I coached for 2 years at Plymouth State when I was done playing. And I was in a routine where I would just go and train the football team at 6 a.m. and then 7:15. And then right after that, I would work out. And then I would go and I would jump in the river. And I would sit on the edge of the river and I would just close my eyes and just whisper in my head, show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. And eventually that started leading to some nice experiences where I would just feel this absolute stillness and peace and just quietness and softness and just this simplicity of feeling like just seeing, hearing the running water of the river and just opening my eyes and just seeing the trees and the water and the sky. And it was just this kind of bringing me back to nature, I think. I started doing this for about 6 months, and I told my mom, I'm doing this meditation thing where I jump in the river and I just sit on the edge, and it's been helping. And then she ended up doing the research to find transcendental meditation and then asked me if I wanted to learn that with her. So we actually learned that in December of 2014. I've practiced that like every day since.
I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah.
So 11 years. I mean, or almost 11 years.
Yep.
So I guess tell the listeners, because not everyone knows. Everyone's heard of meditation. They understand that it's beneficial, lowers our cortisol, physiologically it's good for us. But what exactly is transcendental meditation, and how is it different than regular meditation?
Yeah, so there's a few different perspectives. So with transcendental meditation, there's a whole story, and it's like to be a TM teacher, there's a whole training process that you go through. It comes from the Vedic tradition in India, and it's kind of been extracted. So they tried to remove like the religious part of it. So it's just more of a scientific practice. It's just like you get a mantra that's a meaningless sound, and you say that sound, and it leads you to what's called effortless self-transcendence. And you reach a state of pure consciousness, which is just like the source of thought. I say this. It's like, how McDonald's has their branding? It's like, this is our way of doing things. It's like TM is way better than McDonald's. But that's kind of like they have their own approach to it. It's like there's so many different types of meditation. There's mindfulness meditation. There's like Hare Krishna meditation. There's just a whole variety of different types of meditation. And this is one that I think has helped me a tremendous amount. But there's a lot of different types out there, and they can do different things for your brainwave. So like mindfulness is more of like just kind of like open monitoring your thoughts. You don't have a mantra. It's just becoming aware of what thoughts are coming in. And you're just like, there's a thought. Oh, there's a thought. So that's called open monitoring. Transcendental meditation takes you a little deeper to where you can access, like, obviously you still have thoughts, but you're repeating a mantra that brings your mind into a more settled space. And then ideally, it's like the thoughts become less and less and less. And eventually they lead you to just more peace and silence. And that over time, it's like, it's a 20-minute practice for meditation. You just sit quietly and close your eyes and say the mantra. It's very simple. It's like, it's so easy. Some people get confused. They're like, should I be having this experience or this experience? It's like anybody can have any experience. Meditation is just like working out. It's like you want to work out every day or, 3 to 4 days a week so that you maintain optimal health levels. It's like meditation you can do every day, twice a day for 20 minutes. That's kind of their prescription. Obviously, it's like there are different practices where you can do more than that or less. But yeah, I've found this to be very simple, very easy.
Is there more benefit to doing it more frequently? I mean, obviously, it needs to be consistent for the benefits in that regard. But like the twice a day, 20 minutes, does it have to be that specific? If someone just does it once a day for 20 minutes, are they getting the same results?
There's a lot of research and science in transcendental meditation, and there's different practices too. So obviously, some is better than none. Anything's better than nothing. The 2 is the prescribed dose, but there's also the TM City program, which is just like a longer program. So that can be like up to an hour each time or an hour and a half each time you do it. But yeah, 20 minutes twice a day, that's kind of like the general rule of thumb that they stick to. Obviously, when I first started, I was such an angry person. I was like, I wanted to do it more. So I was like, this is the place where I feel happy. So they tell you not to do this, but I'm a rebel. So I was like, I'm going to meditate for longer than 20 minutes. So I was going for like, sometimes I would go for like a half hour to an hour. And they say that's not good because sometimes what happens when you start meditating is like our physiology stores stress over over our lifetimes, and that stress needs to be released. And when you meditate, you're settling your mind so that your body can release that stress. And sometimes that stress release comes in the form of thoughts or emotions. Sometimes you'll have a memory come of something that happened in the past that made you sad, and all of a sudden you'll have this outpouring of sadness. Some people are like, well, meditation just makes me sad. But it's like meditation is a practice for stress release. So sometimes the outcome of meditation will be an outpouring of sadness or an outpouring of gratitude. It's anything. You could be meditating sometime and reflect on something that was really beautiful in your life, and all of a sudden you're re-experiencing the emotions that are right there. So it's basically just a very simple practice, and you try not to overanalyze it and overthink it and be like, well, this happened, so this must be the cause of this. And it's like that saying, let it go.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing. Sit down, say your mantra, and just try to let things go. That's how I've approached it.
For a little bit of a backstory, just because people aren't going to know this, is that my father-in-law has been practicing transcendental meditation for 51 years now. And my husband has only been doing it now for a year and a half since he learned from his father. And I'm the like outlier here. I have you, I have them. I've always wanted to learn, and yet I've never gotten to or actually done it. And there is a little bit of gatekeeping with TM, I have to say, at least that I've seen, because it is this specific method. And the teachers, at least my father-in-law, takes it very seriously that you have to follow this way of learning it, that you have to have this ceremony and, do these certain things and get this mantra given to you, which I've heard is also a tiny bit controversial because some people don't like that aspect, that it's like, well, you can't just go learn it on your own, or you can't, someone can't just teach it to you unless they're doing this very strict ceremony. But maybe there's a benefit to that too, because it makes it this like special sacred thing. How do you feel about that?
It's an oral tradition. So this practice of meditation has been passed down in the Vedic tradition in India for thousands and thousands of years. And it's an oral tradition. So it goes from teacher to student, guru to disciple. That oral tradition, that teacher has the knowledge, and what they're doing with the puja, which is that little ceremony that they do where they light the candle, that is basically just a ceremony of gratitude to all of the teachers that have passed this knowledge down. So over the course of thousands of years, all these teachers, they pass this down, from word of mouth, oral tradition. And they teach, one person at a time, boom, 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 just like that. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of Transcendental Meditation, came to the USA in the 60s and started this movement, and basically wanted to bring peace to the world, and brought this meditation practice to people, and just wanted to try to, basically they say it's the purity of the knowledge. They just want to keep it very specific to his teachings and his instructions. And his instructions were, you have to be a certified teacher, you do the puja, you maintain that regular practice. And this is all because he had a lot of business people and scientists in the 60s and 70s that were joining this TM practice, and they were doing a lot of research to show the benefits, and the benefits come from that regularity. It's like, if you're doing a scientific research project, you have to have the same, whatever. I don't know the scientific term for it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the scientific method, like reproducible results.
Yes.
Watching my husband go through this and kind of see this process as a new person and all the questions, there was something that his dad had him do called a checking. Yep. And I would be like, you mean a check-in? And he's like, no, it's called a checking. And I'm like, what is that? And I guess it was just to ask your teacher questions, because as you're a new meditator, some of these like things come up, or the questions, like you said, people want to make it more complicated than it is, or they're confused, or they're like, am I supposed to be feeling this? Am I supposed to acknowledge this thought? How do I push it away? What does it mean when this comes up? So is that what the checking is just like kind of checking in with your teacher and getting feedback on what you're experiencing?
Yeah. It's just a way to keep that relationship open. So if you have questions, you have your TM teacher that you can ask those questions to, someone experienced in it. And if you meditate with somebody, so meditating with a teacher, it allows, everybody puts off their own vibrational frequency or has their own level of consciousness. And so these teachers who have practiced a lot of, they've meditated a lot, they have a little bit more of that silence within them. So when they meditate with someone new, it might help that person to reach a deeper level of silence that they might not reach when they're alone. So a checking allows them, one, to have a deeper experience with their teacher, and two, to have their teacher to ask those questions too. Because it's opening meditation is like, it opens you to the universe, and having someone who understands the practice and knows all the things that come up with stress release and thoughts and things like that. And usually, I know for me, when I first learned, I was like, I'm coming from the place of being like, I almost died. I want to know what's happening. Like, God, talk to me about that. I want to understand these different states of consciousness, and like being lucid in the dreams. I was throwing all the questions at them that are sometimes difficult for them to answer, because it's like, this is a meditation teacher. They might not have all the answers, but they have the experience with meditation to try and help you. So it's not like, it might not be a relationship where this is the person that you're going to go to for all of the knowledge that you need for the rest of your life, but it's definitely a great person to go to for your questions about meditation. And it's a good place to start, to have that type of an ally in your life.
Yep. Something that I've found with people who get really excited when they start meditating is, I guess it is the ego wanting to get something out of it. So how do we separate ourselves and our ego saying, well, I want the health benefits and I want to figure out cool things or have spirits come to me or magical thoughts come to me or inspiration or I want to reach enlightenment. And so we have that, all of that is the ego driving that. What if that's all driving your desire to meditate? And then is there a point where you finally are like, oh, that's not the point at all?
Yeah. Oh, great question. Yeah. The ego, it's like, I think sometimes what meditation does is it helps that ego soften a little bit. It helps that ego dissolve a little bit. I have my own personal experiences with what I think the ego is. And it's like the ego is the individual I and more associated with the mind, whereas the self, capital S, is the soul, and it's more about the heart. And what meditation does is it lets you quiet your mind to experience your heart. So it quiets the ego to experience your pure self or true self or divine self, God, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, definitely starting out. I mean, even still, it's like you can't really get rid of your ego. I think maybe in enlightenment, like when you reach enlightenment, maybe your ego dissolves to the point where you just see God in everything, or you see yourself in everything and everyone. But I feel like the ego is like a mask, and we're always going to be able to have that type of mask that we can use. So it's like, and it's identity. It's like the ego is whatever you identify with. So it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, I'm in a human man body. I'm white. I have brown hair. I was a football player. I was a football coach. I'm a professor. I have these degrees. I'm from this location. So those are all little labels that I put on to my ego, or who I think I am. And usually the ego starts out with body consciousness. As a little baby, it's like, okay, this is who I am. But that's one of the big questions, is like, who am I? So Ramana Maharishi, who is another monk or sage from India, he used to say, it's like, all you need to do is have radical self-inquiry. Just ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And eventually you'll get to that place of unity where you realize yourself as consciousness or as God. And that is everything. So everything is that. There's a saying in a Vedic expression, Tattvamasi, thou art that, or you are that. So you are God, you are consciousness. And I think it's just, we've been raised and conditioned very heavily to have this sense of like I or ego, especially in the Western world. It's like with capitalism and individualism, it's like everybody has to fight for themselves and become something. And I think we put a lot of emphasis on career and profession. So I think there's just, when it comes to ego, it's a lot about identity. And meditation allows you to kind of drop some of those labels and experience that deeper, truer, more pure, actual self.
Yeah. Humans love to be identified with their name and who they are and what they look like. And I remember reading, I think it was in Be Here Now by Eckhart Tolle many, many years ago, right in the beginning. I think he talks about the goldfish and the bowl and how we give it a name and we give it an identity and we make it something different, but it didn't think it was separate from the water, which was separate from the ocean, until we did that. And so that's what we do with humans. And then we create this separateness, and that separateness creates suffering. But I also wonder, we're a conduit for understanding spirituality and all that is in ourselves, but our brain is still acknowledging that. So like if you get to that place of pure consciousness, or you feel, even in the physical body, if you feel some kind of pleasure or joy, I mean, that's still like the brain's perception of that. And I guess that's hard for me sometimes. I don't specifically do transcendental meditation, but obviously I've done other kinds of meditation. And that's where I'll be like, oh, I'm enjoying this feeling. But then I'm like, but am I not supposed to enjoy this? Because that's my brain's interpretation of what's happening right now. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. So there's, what is it? Attraction and aversion. So there's a book by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, Untethered Living, Living Untethered. But he talks about attraction and aversion. So there are things that we want in our life and things that we don't want in our life. And there are things that it's like, we don't want the bad things, so we try to avoid those. And then there are things that we do want, and we try to hold on to those. And I think the point is to experience fully what you're experiencing in the moment. So it's like when you're in the moment and you're experiencing joy, it's like, experience the joy fully. Don't, try not to overthink and be like, well, I shouldn't be experiencing this. I should be in a state of equanimity. stop having fun. It's like, no.
Stop enjoying this meditation.
Yeah. It's like, enjoy the experience, be fully present in that experience and enjoy it. I think for me, what has helped is it's like, you have to be able to let things come and let things go with grace and ease. I know there's been certain times when things come into my life that I love and I want to hold on to. Sometimes things are not meant to be held on to too long. It's like, so you have to be able to let it go gracefully, whether it's a relationship, a job, an experience. If you have a nice experience in meditation one time, and then the next time you go and meditate and you're trying to have that same experience, you might not. That's okay. But you shouldn't be trying to force that experience. So trying to just be easy and effortless and let things come and let things go with a little bit of grace.
Well, something else that my father-in-law had told Mike was, especially early on, sometimes you think that these thoughts that come to you when you do get into this very peaceful stream of consciousness type of a state, that sometimes you come out of the meditation and if you remember it, you're like, I got to act on that. Like, I got to do that thing. That was obviously some like super magical God intended information that came to me. And it isn't always good, or you aren't supposed to always act on it. Or it was sort of like you talked about in the beginning, your brain dumping stuff, getting rid of things or purging things. So you don't need to act on everything that comes to you, or it isn't always like a super profound thought that's come through to you. Have you found that to be true as well?
Well, for sure. Yeah. It's a good thing I haven't acted on all the thoughts I've had in meditation. Yeah. It's like, so what I do, I'm a very creative person. So I've always got a notebook at my bedside with a pen. And if I'm meditating and I have an idea where I'm like, I need to remember this, I'll just open my eyes real quick, write it down just so I remember it. And then I'll be able to go back into meditation. I won't come out of meditation and just start going right on that idea. I'll just take a little note, jot it down, and then I'll go back to meditation. And I mean, honestly, 90% of the time, I never even act on that thought. But 10% of the time, it's like, yeah, that was a good one. Because it's like, I don't know, I read somewhere we have like 60,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
And it's like, you can't act on all those thoughts.
I feel like I have like 200,000 a day.
Yeah.
The thoughts come as fast as I talk.
Yes.
Next thing, back to that same thing about the purging and stuff coming out. You were talking about sadness, or what if difficult things are coming up for you? And maybe that's part of the journey of meditation is let it come and let it go away. But what if people do have a really traumatic childhood and then are scared to go into this state and worried that things that they've been suppressing are coming forward? Does meditation pull that suppressed trauma thoughts, things you really don't like, a part of your brain you've been kind of like blocking? Does it bring that forward?
It can. A lot of things can happen at any time, whether you're meditating or not. It's like, if you're not meditating, you can have that same experience where stress comes up and you feel overwhelmed, whether it's PTSD or something from your past that's emotional that comes up. You can have that whether you meditate or not. And how you deal with it is up to the individual. I know for me, when I was having a hard time, it's like the coping mechanisms that I had were drugs and alcohol, but there's also healthy coping mechanisms, exercise, getting enough sleep, sobriety, meditation, therapy, writing, reading, finding different habits. Meditation specifically, it's like, it's a great tool, but it's not the only tool that should be used. If you have trauma, get a trauma therapist. Meditation's great. There's more that needs to go into it. It's a tool for self-development. And if people are looking for it to be the cure-all for everything in their lives, it's like, it's a great tool, but it's like a carpenter has many tools. Meditation is what helps the carpenter learn how to use his hammer better, learn how to use his saw better. But you can't just rely on one practice. And another thing that goes with that is like stress and trauma that's stored. When we meditate, some of it can be released, and there's certain things you can do to help make that easier. Exercising, talking to a therapist, writing, creating, deep breathing. There's a lot of different things you can do. Meditation is great for helping that release that stress and kind of deal with that. But I think too, when people don't have enough realization of what they're experiencing, it's like, I'm able to have this understanding because I've read a lot of different books. I've been practicing meditation for like a decade. I'm sober. And from the experiences I've had from being on drugs, having a lot of issues with drugs, alcohol, and like having emotional things come up that I didn't know how to deal with. I have enough experience to pull from now that I'm like, oh, I know what's happening. So if I ever have an experience where I'm like meditating now and something comes up, I know what I'm experiencing and I know what's happening. So I'm able to talk myself out of any anxiety about what's happening. And that's where, again, having a TM teacher that you can talk to be like, hey, I had this experience, having someone you can talk to who's got a little bit more experience than you is a great way to kind of soothe some of that anxiety if you are experiencing any anxiety or depression or sadness that's coming up about your trauma. But again, plenty of other options out there with therapy and exercise.
Yeah. I was specifically thinking about our parents, and at least my mom too. Traumatic childhood, really doesn't want to deal with it. Doesn't want to go to therapy, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to think about it, doesn't want to remember it. I imagine meditation maybe would help with that over time, but maybe initially it's hard to overcome. But I was thinking of her specifically. If you really get deep into meditation, is it going to bring up a lot of this stuff that you've just really tried to push away from your consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People, I mean, it's natural for people to want to feel good and to avoid what makes them feel bad. Your mom, my dad, they had the same childhood with what they experienced. And my dad's the same. He doesn't want to think about it, doesn't want to talk about it, but it affects him. It's there. That trauma's there. As much as they try and push it down, it's still inside of them. So that's the thing with the stress. It's stored in the physiology. And the more they repress it, the more it will come out in ways of, pain, negativity, emotional eating, depression, all different things. So there's a ton of different health issues that come about from suppressing these emotions. So that's why I'm a huge supporter of meditation as a way to kind of release that stress. But, that's saying the truth will set you free. But at first it's going to sting a little. You might have to feel a little pain and discomfort and remember something from your past that's not comfortable to let it actually go. One of the things I wrote in my book was you have to feel it to heal it. And I think it's true. It might not necessarily be true. I think some people might want to hear meditation's just going to heal you and help you and you're not going to feel any sadness. I think that might be possible for some people. I'm not sure if that's the case for everybody.
That goes back to sobriety too, because you have to feel everything. I mean, people aren't sober because they don't want to feel the negative things. We don't want to feel anything negative in our society right now. It's all about what's fast and what's easy and what gives us a dopamine high. And you could get a dopamine high from an amazing meditation, which just goes back to what we were just talking about, like that amazing feeling. Maybe there was a rush of neurotransmitters, physiologically, that's what was happening and it was great. But you can't go back and chase it, and to pause and be mindful of a craving, of a desire, of a want, or to sit in the discomfort is part of that learning process. And I'm guilty of it too. I definitely would like to numb it all out sometimes as well. But you do learn so much more if you can sit with it. If you can be like, what's really happening here? There's always something deeper underneath, like an initial emotion or an initial urge or desire. There's always something underneath it.
Yep, for sure. I had experience once, and one of the sentences that came through, the words of wisdom I got were, can you accept what is? And I think that's a big thing to remember, is just being able to sit still with your own thoughts. It's like that saying, be still, like for the water, it's like, be still until, if there's muddy water, sit still until all the mud settles and the water is clear, and then you'll be able to see. And I think sometimes when people start meditating, the water is really muddy and it can be difficult. And that mud gets stirred up at first when they start meditating because it's all the stress coming out. But eventually, if you continue to go and take that dive and meditate and go into that silence within yourself, eventually you'll release all the stress and then you'll just be this nice glass of water.
How do you bring that peacefulness into regular life? I mean, is there a point where you've meditated enough that you can take this like inner center light and bring it into every stressful situation and approach it with calm? Does that come with years and years of practice? Does that ever come? Is that something somewhat the goal too, is to find that consciousness and then be able to regulate your emotions in the modern world with it?
Yeah. I mean, the experience is you're able to touch that source of consciousness, of pure being within yourself. And then that will kind of radiate out into your behavior, your thoughts, your actions in the world. I know for me, when I first learned, the analogy that the teachers will use is it's like dyeing a cloth. So when you first take a piece of cloth and you dye it in some yellow dye, you take it out, you put it in the sun, and the sun will actually make it look a little less yellow. But then you just put it back in the dye, back in the sun, and then it loses a little of its color, then back and forth.
I remember my father-in-law mentioning that, I think, the cloth dyeing. Yeah.
So that's the analogy that Maharishi gave to all the teachers. So that's one that's kind of passed on through the tradition, because that's kind of how you hold on to that pure consciousness. It's not something you have to put too much effort in. It's effortless. So the more you meditate, it just kind of restructures your brain. As you release that stress, your physiology kind of realigns to what it's meant to be. And then you can actually take that with you into action. And I think some of the best things to do, like they'll talk about integration, how do you integrate this, when you go from silence and meditation out into the world of activity. And what I've found is give yourself that little transition phase where it's like, once you're done meditating, take a little time to rest, but then engage in the activity that's most meaningful to you. And I know today in the world, there's a lot of things that we have to do that we might not want to do because we have to make money in order to survive and all that, blah, blah, blah. But trying to engage right after you meditate with the activity that is most like you're most curious about, or you're most passionate about, or you feel like has the most meaning for your life. So right when you're done meditating, if you can try and act on that. And sometimes it might not be something career oriented. It might be parenting. It might be a relationship that you need to mend. Whatever's going on in your individual life, you can try and, we talked about what actions do you take. It's like, that's where discernment comes in. So when you're done meditating, you had a bunch of thoughts and you're like, maybe I should try and help my mom or my dad, or maybe one of my children needs a little bit more love and attention. And you can kind of use discernment to decide, like, where do you want to give that energy to. So that's another thing. You can kind of look at your time usage as energy. Where do you want to put your energy? I think meditation can help reveal your values and what's important to you, and help you. Then when you come out of meditation, then you can kind of discern and prioritize where you want to put your focus and your attention and your.
So if we're dipping the cloth needs to be consistently dipped to maintain its dye, because you just said it fades in the sun. That's the consistency with the meditation to bring that into regular life. I found that in other experiences I've had where I get to this really peaceful place, I'm like, I'm going to go back to my house and my kids, and I'm going to be like the most mindful, peaceful mother ever. And then you get there and they're screaming and it's chaos and it's a mess, or just, the usual. And it's gone. Like all that peace just disappears. I don't know where it went. I'm like, bring it back. Nope, it's gone. I'm angry. And so, is that just that it just takes the time, the practice, the consistency to learn that emotional regulation, to be mindful of like, okay, that rise of anger or stress or whatever that feeling is rising up in me. And now what do I do? Do I let it come but not act on it? Do I let it come and then like let it go away? How do I temper that rage?
Great question. Yeah. So the consistency with meditation is the first thing. It's like, we're human. You're doing a great job. Like, give yourself some love and some credit. You're doing a great job. And it's that consistency to stick with it. And when you have those moments where I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'm not a perfect person. There's still moments where I'm like, something happens at work and I get pissed off and I'm like, oh, but it's like, all right. I know I can always go and sit and meditate and then kind of get a different perspective. And I think that's a big thing, is it helps you get a little bit of that higher perspective. You're not as in the weeds and emotionally attached and invested. It's like you can detach, step back, and just kind of observe it. So stay with the continued practice, but then also when you do mess up, like give yourself some, compassion and awareness, and have that. Like, as soon as that awareness dawns on you, like if you're in a moment where you're like, you just came out of meditation, you're going to see your family and it's all chaos. It's like that deep breath. All right, here we go. And, you just have to try to keep that positive mental attitude about like, I might get triggered. It might be chaotic. I'm going to do my best. And just that attitude is perfect. And then you just try to learn from every situation. Like you're not a limited person. You don't label yourself like, oh, I'm terrible like this. I have rage. I have this. I have that. No, I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm capable of changing. So giving yourself that compassion, that grace to be like, all right, well, overreacted to that. Anyway, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to try a little better tomorrow. So you can always have a nice redo, a reset.
Yeah, for sure. Another thought I had was I've noticed that, and this might go back to vibrations, so this is a whole other topic, but vibrations, frequencies, Mike's gotten really interested in this too, also because he's keeping bees. So there's a lot of stuff with that with bees. But when he's meditating, we have 4 cats and a dog. They'll just come and be sitting on him. Like while he's meditating, one day I came in and he just had a cat on either shoulder purring, and he doesn't even really like cats. They're really just like everyone else likes them.
That's great.
So he doesn't like them. He's just sitting there meditating in bed, and they're just sitting there purring on his shoulders, and the dog's like on his lap. So that's got to be something. Is there like a projection of peacefulness, or is there like a vibration that happens that is drawing these animals in, and they want to be part of it, that they enjoy it? What's actually happening there?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that when you meditate, you can access a place of deeper calm, deeper peace. And animals are, I think, more sensitive sometimes than some humans can be.
Yeah.
So the animals definitely feel that. And they probably are like, huh, that guy feels nice. And they just go over and chill with him.
There's some good vibrations over here.
Yeah.
Let's add our purrs to it.
I remember when I was first here in Fairfield, because there's so many people in this community in Fairfield, Iowa, that meditate. When I was first here, I remember I was sitting in my car one day and a bunny just literally came up right next to my car. Like I'm sitting in my car door's open, and I have like one leg out of the car, and I'm just like sitting there on the phone or just sitting there contemplating something. And this little bunny just comes right up. And I mean, he's like 1.5 feet, 2 feet away from me. And I'm just sitting there looking at him. He's just like looking up at me. And I'm like, wow, this dude just doesn't care. He's just, yeah, it was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, he sensed your peaceful vibes. What about cosmic consciousness? Can you explain cosmic consciousness to me?
I'm like, you definitely have some TM questions. Yeah, so cosmic consciousness. So basically, Maharishi, the founder of TM, kind of created a lot of intellectual property about different things that people can experience when they practice transcendental meditation. And one of the things you asked about, how does that consciousness come with you into activity? That's basically what cosmic consciousness is. When you have that state of that when you meditate, you reach pure consciousness, which is that oneness with the absolute. You are the source of thought, the source of everything, and you are that. You experience that in your meditation sometimes. Sometimes it's just thoughts because you're unstressing. But when you have that feeling of just absolute calmness, stillness, oneness, and you take that into your activity. So it's like if you experience that eyes open when you're moving around, when you're shopping or walking through nature, talking with your kids, doing something you enjoy like writing or music, you can have those flashes, that feeling of you're in the flow. Have you heard of, being in the flow?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. I think the flow and cosmic consciousness are very similar. It's like you're just one with the activity you're doing. And you have that feeling of just like oneness, calmness, peace, flow, ease, naturalness. That's what I think cosmic consciousness is.
When we're in the flow state, so much good comes, I've found, because everybody has an up and a down. We have times where we're just vibing and things are coming, everything. We're like, wow, I'm like living in this moment of like good stuff's coming, positivity. And then the opposite, where our mindset's negative and bad things are happening. And you're like, it's Mercury retrograde. So much bad stuff's happening. But when you're in that flow state, and that's a good point for meditating, helping maintain that, keep you in that, especially if you're getting in that negative mindset, is bringing positivity into your life, letting the good come to you, believing that the universe is good, believing that people are good, then the more good comes to you because that's the projection that you're putting out into the world. Does meditation help with that? That's what it kind of sounds like to me, because it's helping down regulate the like negative monkey mind that creates that negative energy.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think the meditation leads to more self-awareness, and the more self-awareness kind of comes, I know for me, like perspective and beliefs and influences, those are three big things I just did like a PowerPoint on like a week ago. So it's like the perspective and the beliefs that we take on, it's like we've been conditioned to have most of those. I don't know if it's the same for you, but like when I was realizing things about my life, I'm like, most of the thoughts I was having, they came right from my dad. It was my dad's voice or my dad's beliefs or my dad's perspective. And then as I got older and learned to meditate and had more experiences and read more and acquired more knowledge, I was like, I don't actually believe that to be the truth. And that's not a perspective that I think I want to continue to hold on to. So I had to go and try and figure out and learn more about how to change my perspective, how to change my beliefs. And meditation definitely helps with that. I feel like one of the analogies I use when I teach is it's like an etch and sketch, you know, when etch and sketch is with the little knobs.
Yeah.
So basically our skills and our habits and our perspective, that's the knob. So it's like whatever picture we're painting in our life is just an accumulation of our skills and our habits. And what meditation allows us to do is just take the etch and sketch and shake it. We get that blank slate. And then once we get that blank slate, we can actually learn from our experiences and ask ourselves, okay, how did I turn the knobs that time? How can I get a different outcome? And then you just try it again. And then you're like, well, that didn't work either. Shake it up, meditate, try again, shake it up. So it's like meditation for me has been a way to be like, that's how I kind of reflect on what it is I believe, what perspectives I hold. And I know right now the big thing for me, this big thing is I tore my Achilles 2-3 weeks ago. So I've been unable to work out and walk, and it's been really, really tough. And one of my big challenges has just been trying to hold on to a positive outlook and try to find that silver lining of this injury. And I think that meditation has definitely helped try to reframe some negative beliefs or negative perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. That really forced you to slow down. I mean, you're probably always purposely slowing down, I would imagine, at least mentally, but physically, stopping. When I think about childhood trauma, I've done a lot of research on generational trauma because I personally did not have a traumatic childhood, which I'm very grateful for. But I think because both of my parents did, they worked really hard to make sure that I didn't. And a lot of the studies show that trauma is held in our bodies and in our DNA for up to, I want to say 9 generations, which on our maternal grandfather's side, there was trauma through many generations that we know of. So when you talk about not just your dad's voice in your head, which I do think is a whole other thing that I've actually discussed with someone else recently in an interview, which is really interesting because she was saying that's not your opinion, that's not your voice, you know, being mindful of who taught you that, where did that come from? But there's another aspect to generational trauma and how do we break that cycle? So there's all these things, like even the thoughts that are negative that your dad, that you are in your head that you think are from your dad. But it comes also from their generational trauma and their trauma in their childhood to create a place of anxiety and fear and negativity in order to keep themselves safe. So their mindset is, well, let's think of the worst that can happen first to keep ourselves safe from that situation. And so when we're raised that way, we're raised in this very anxious, negative place, even though they were good people trying the best they could and loving their kids and not wanting their kids to grow up the way they did, that still carried on into us. So for us to do the work, whether it's meditation or just this acknowledgement of it or going back and kind of acknowledging the things that they don't want to acknowledge or they can't, but we can because we didn't live it ourselves, is somehow healing this generational trauma. Have you felt that come up for you in meditation? Some of these things that we know kind of happen, but we didn't personally experience, and feeling like we can heal that ourselves for them?
Yeah. I mean, interesting. And I guess, you know, when I was saying I took on my dad's voice, it's like, it wasn't all negative. You know, it's like, I learned a lot of great things from him, and I love both my parents, and
I love them too.
And they did a lot of good for me. And it's like, I had to come to that realization when I was younger. There was times where I was like, I was angry and mad at my parents. But I think over time, it's like, I grew so much more and had so much more love and appreciation for them, for where they came from, and had more compassion and understanding for their upbringing and acceptance for, like, they did do their best. And I'm so grateful that they did what they did for me. And yeah, I definitely feel like because we are, we're family and we're connected, we can definitely have an impact and an influence on healing them and helping them. I know for me, like I'm a very strong believer in prayer and sending positive energy in my heart. Like when I go and sometimes when I meditate, like I'll be meditating for a while at night before bed, and I'll just kind of go into prayer and just send my mom, my dad, my sister, other people that I love and care about. I'll just go into little feelings for them and just send love and energy. And I think it helps.
Yeah. What would happen if we did that with people we didn't care about? Or like, the division that we have right now in this country comes back to the ego and this identity with, this is my belief, this is my political stance or whatever, but you're identifying it so strongly that you are against other people. And what if we took that love and this positive energy and sent it to people that we think we really don't like or are bad, quote unquote, what would happen in this world?
Yeah. Beautiful. I think there's something in the Bible, like pray for your enemies, it's like love your enemies too, because it's like we're all in it together. And I've had to deal with certain levels of betrayal and forgiveness. And like, I have said prayers for people that I used to really not like. So it's like, I had to come to that level of, I think forgiveness is like its own level of realizing you're growing in consciousness, because you're realizing, they were operating out of their own negative influences and perspectives and beliefs, and everybody's got their own baggage. You never know what other people are experiencing. So I think meditation has helped me become a lot more compassionate.
Yeah. If we're all connected, are the people that we think are bad still just part of us too? And then is that kind of what people talk about with shadow work? Is that part of shadow work? Is that something totally different? I'm kind of confused on what that means. I don't know if that's something you've even delved into or not.
One thing I've noticed with shadow work is sometimes it's like the things that we critique most in others, it's just something about ourselves that we actually don't like. And it's like when we see it in someone else, like our own ego can't see that in ourselves. So when we see it in someone else, we're like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. But it's like, that's something that you have that you don't like about yourself. And that person is just a reflection for you to realize that. And at the same time, it's like, all this stuff that's going on in the world, and it's like, this person's a bad person. So it's like, okay, well, we're all in this together. We're all one. And it's like, you can go so deep into this and be like, well, basically that person signed up for that role this time around, and they're playing this character this time around because all of, creation is divinely orchestrated by God, and we're just along for the ride. And once you can realize that and surrender, everything becomes a little bit more joyful and easy. And obviously it's like, there's still going to be a little pain and sorrow. I used to look into all the conspiracy theories and go down that rabbit hole of like, what's the truth? And I'm a protector and a lover, and I feel like I just wanted to become a vigilante. I'm like, all right, I got to go kill the bad guys. But then I'm like, am I a bad guy if I kill bad guys, or am I a good guy if I kill bad guys? So there's so much that goes into it. And I think for me, I had to just like rise above all of those questions and just kind of go to the place of oneness and unity with all things, and just say, everything is evolving perfectly in its own time. I only have control over myself, but my own development of consciousness will influence my environment and everyone else around me. So I took a lot of responsibility to just be like, I'm just going to go inward and just do everything I can to just transform myself to become the best person that I can be, because there are some things that are happening outside of me that I cannot control. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go inward. And there's a quote from Maharishi about, or a principle about how the outer world reflects your inner world. So if you can change things inside of you, it will be reflected outside of you. So I took that to heart, and I've really tried to focus on that, because it's like control what you can, let go of what you can't.
Yeah. How has this all helped you maintain sobriety? Because I find that a lot of people turn to religion and that's what helps them maintain their sobriety, or that's kind of what starts them on the path. But for you, it definitely was more this meditation aspect. If you didn't do it, would you kind of go backwards? Is this the key for you to maintaining sobriety? And how does this actually help you do it?
Yeah, I definitely think this has been the most positive thing for me to do to maintain my sobriety. I was sober before I learned, but I was also still really stressed out, and life was a lot harder. It's a it's probably the best coping mechanism that I could find. Meditation is the best coping mechanism I could find. Before it was drugs and alcohol. Now it's meditation. So it's just a way to like, it's like taking a emotional, like, it's like taking a bath in like spiritual energy where you can just kind of like release your stress and worries and fears and just kind of breathe easy and feel peace. And like to experience peace, like from living a life of like always being kind of like fear, anxiety, depression, like what do I do? What am I doing? What's happening? All that, to experience peace and just have this like, it's priceless. So for me, it's been great. But I don't just meditate. Like I study a lot of different things. Like I study different religions and I study all these different spiritual things. And I'm like, I think that's one of the things I like about myself is that I'm open. I know from studying different religions and talking to different people, I've noticed a lot of people who come to religion can sometimes be limited in their openness to other religions.
Absolutely.
And for me, I'm like, hey, if this one works, let me go see if that one works. And I like I'll take a little Jesus from this one. I'll take a little Buddha from this one. I'll take a little TM from over here. So I just kind of learn as much as I can from each of these things.
What is the motivation to stay consistent? Because I've personally seen quite a few people learn, especially transcendental meditation, and then just not stick with it, not do it at least even once a day, which you've probably seen as well. So who is most successful? Is it the people who need it the most? They need it to maintain their sobriety? What's the motivating factor to stay consistent?
Yeah, I mean, it's very personal and individual for each person. I know for me, I was seeking. I was like, I want knowledge. I want to know God. That was like my deepest thing. And it was like more of a devotion to knowledge and uncovering the truth and learning more about myself and God and the universe and all of it. So I was like, meditation was just allowing me to access peace, which allowed me to think more clearly, and being able to think more clearly helped me. So I think for me, like I can really only speak for myself how it works, but it's like I was just so hungry for knowledge and for knowing God. I think that was my driving motivator, and meditation was just a way for me to feel like I was getting closer to God and getting more of that knowledge from within myself. From what I've noticed with like people here in Fairfield and at the school that I work at, it does attract a lot of different types of people. And sometimes it's usually the people who have a little hardship in their life. They're going through something hard. They're trying to get sober, or they've had some sort of trauma, or they're really hungry to know and understand God, and they're trying to figure out the universe and all that. So I would say those are two common things, but there's definitely a handful of people who come to it that are just, they're curious. They're normal, functioning people with jobs and lives and children and families and things like that. So it's for everybody. But
is there a time frame you think it's pretty difficult to a certain point, and then these people kind of give up or quit before they've really gotten to the place where they're like, oh, this is something I'm going to stick with?
Yeah, I think that's more of a mindset thing. And it's like if they're looking for meditation to provide some sort of result right away and they're not seeing a result, then they'll feel like, what's the point of this? Or if they're like, all right, I think I got what I needed while I needed it, but now I don't need it anymore. And I think it's unfortunate if people do that, because I feel like it's like taking a shower. It's like if you take a shower once, you're like, oh, I'm clean, I'm good, I showered. But it's like, you got to do that every day, man. It's like you don't not bathe ever again. So it's like taking a shower for your brain. It's like you want to shower your brain. I'm like, I love showering my brain, Yeah, it's like spiritual hygiene. You got to wash off the trauma and the stress, and then you can experience your higher self.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool, because that is the same kind of a thing with the Etch-a-Sketch, So I like this analogy of we're washing, you said we're bathing in spirit, we're cleansing the palate. It's a neat analogy. I really need to learn.
Yeah, it's great. Highly recommend.
I know that in the past you've done some periods of fasting. What was the longest you've gone fasting? And do you feel like the longer it was, the more beneficial it was? And how did that intensify or enhance your meditations?
Yeah, the longest I ever did was 7 days, where it was just water. And then another time I did 3 days, just water. I think there was benefit to it because I realized that I could do it. I was like, oh yeah, I don't actually need food. And I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was. I was like, what? 7 days without food? I was like, that's insane. But then I did it, and it was like after, like if you initially just get over those little hunger pains, you realize your body is a lot stronger than you think. Like eating is more of a habit than it is a requirement. And obviously you don't want to hurt yourself by doing something fasting when you shouldn't. And it's different for everybody. Some people's physiology can handle it. Some people's can't. I mean, when I fasted for a week, I think I lost like a lot of weight. And I don't recommend fasting as much as I do meditation. Fasting is a little bit more of a, I don't know, a little bit more hardcore than just meditating. And I probably wouldn't do it the way I did it again because I was alone in a cabin in Colorado.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, there was no one around to even come and check on me. Yeah. And I was like, I'm good. I'm on with Jesus. I feel great. Yeah. So the whole reason I did that was because I read this book that said, it was called The Essene Gospel of Peace. And it was basically like a book about Jesus. And Jesus would tell his disciples, like, if you fast for 7 days, you'll become like me. And I was like, oh, I'll try that out. So yeah, fasting is great. I would say overeating is bad, but fasting is not always necessary. If you have a moderate ability to consume food at a okay rate and it's not like stress eating, then that's good. So if you do feel like you have that stress eating thing, sometimes fasting can really challenge you to be like, okay, these hunger pains, it's a psychological thing. So meditation can definitely help along with the fasting to kind of overcome that, because it helps us become a little bit more aware that we are consciousness and not our body. I think a lot of people are identified with their bodies, and realizing that we are actually, not our body is a hard thing to experience, but it's like, we're going to have to face it sometime. It's like, you don't want to just experience it at the moment of your death, because that can cause a lot of fear. And so if you can have that acceptance and understanding, at least intellectually, you might not have it experientially, but if you at least understand it a little bit intellectually before you die, then I think that would make the death process easier. And I think it makes life better.
Yeah. When you say not your body, is it because the hunger pains are becoming so central and you have to ignore it and push it away? Or does it get to a point where you don't even feel hungry anymore and now you're just somewhere else? What is happening there?
Yeah, it's more of okay, it comes and you're aware you're hungry, but instead of being like, all right, I'm going to go eat, you just, for me, I had to either pray or meditate, or, I was drinking water. So I would just drink a little bit of water. But then it's at night, sometimes I would wake up and I would feel a little hungry, and I would just have to tell them I would either just pray or meditate, and eventually it would go away. It might last 20 minutes, it might last a half hour, it might last an hour, but eventually it would go away, and then I would feel a little bit better. Now, I do have to say, when I was fasting for a week, I did feel a lot weaker. I wasn't exercising. I was just taking it really light and easy. So I wasn't working out, didn't have any vigorous activity that I had to do. I wasn't working that week. I was on vacation. So I was able to just literally just sit around the house or go outside and sit in the sun, because I definitely felt a lot weaker physically.
I wonder if there's a mind strength component, because I imagine it gets to a point where your body's just I need to eat. I want food, and something's wrong. Why are you not listening to me? But you're working against that. And I just think that goes for so many things, even working out, I strength train and lift really heavy. And there's a point where, obviously it's again, that coming back to that discomfort that we just don't want to feel, overcoming that, pushing through that. It's the same idea. Do we get a mental toughness from pushing through things that are uncomfortable for us? Can we bring that into every aspect of our life? So you have uncomfortable thoughts, work through it. You have discomfort in the body, work through it, not in a detrimental way. We don't want to be, we have to acknowledge sometimes these things too. But coming out of that fast, were you more mindful about what you were eating after that?
Well, there's the answer. There's the truth, and there's an answer that I should give so that people do what I think they should do. So I'll tell you what I did, and it wasn't the best thing, all right? I did not approach this the best way. When I was fasting, I was taking notes, and I was like, ooh, I want to eat this when I come off my fast. So I had black bean burgers, sweet potato fries. I came up with this idea. I wanted to have lemon cake with blueberries and a glass of milk. And
keeping a list of like what I can eat again. This is what
seriously,
I'm having.
I had like an entire page of foods that I wanted to eat, and it was a really bad idea. I ate way too much, and I became really constipated because basically your digestion kind of shuts down. Just it softens a little. It's not had to work for a week. I was on vacation. And so I guess like us, when we come back to work after a week, we're like, what do we do here? So I was like really constipated for a couple of days, and that was not fun. So I would definitely recommend, if you're coming off a fast, to just try some light liquids like milk, bone broth, if you eat, animal products, some eggs maybe, just lighter stuff, not a black bean burger with sweet potato fries and a huge piece of cake.
All right.
Go ahead. I had one other thing that I remembered when you were talking about like developing that mental toughness, that mental fortitude. I was watching, I don't know who it was. They're talking about there's a certain part of the brain that's developed that is basically like it strengthens your willpower. So like when you do things that are really difficult that you don't want to do, like maybe fasting or exercising when you don't want to, it strengthens that part of your brain, which is directly correlated to your willpower. And it's like a muscle. So it's like the more you're able to do things you don't want to do, whether it's like taking an ice bath or like having a diet that might be hard to adhere to, the more you're able to do that, it's like you're strengthening that muscle power. You're strengthening your own willpower to continue to do the things that are hard to do. And then you can do more hard things.
In closing, if you want to mention maybe what's like next for you, what's coming up for you, what are new like projects, things that you're doing?
Yeah. Let's see. So I've got a self-help book out there, Imagine Simple Steps to Success. And that kind of goes through my journey a little bit. I kind of have taken a little break from music because I did the screenwriting. So I've been working on a lot of different scripts, acting in different short films. I've got so many ideas. I've got some people trying to help me narrow down which ones I should actually focus on, because I'm like,
we have the same problem.
And I come up with so many big ideas.
ADHD brain, and it's like, so many things.
Yeah. But one of the big ideas I want to try to push through, and I've started working on, is basically a production company / casting agency here in Fairfield that will allow everybody in the community who's creative to kind of come together and create with each other. So have like a little creative collective that we can all have a place and network together. And, have a website where it's like, if you're an actor, a writer, a director, a producer, filmmaker, whatever it might be, sound designer, you can have your name and your info on this database. And then anybody who has a membership can go in and find other creatives and figure out, hey, you want to work on this project together? Or, we can have pitching contests for screenplays, and then kind of connect and collaborate on different projects. So that's what I'm working on right now.
It's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So where can people find you online right now?
I guess DustinMatthewsMedia.com, or my Instagram is Dustin Matthews Life. Yeah.
Cool. And if someone wants to learn TM, how would you suggest they go about doing that?
You can do a Google search, like TM centers near me, or tm.org, I think is the actual website for it. And then there's the university that I teach at. So if people learn it and they really want to go deep into it, they can check out the university's website. So that would be Maharishi International University.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today. That was a really cool conversation. I love picking your brain on this stuff. And we'll have to talk more.
Yeah. Thanks, Jill. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You have great questions. You're very intelligent. So happy to be here.
All right. Bye, Dustin.
All right. See you, Jill.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave a review. In that review, I would love to hear what topics you'd like to see covered next and which guests you'd love to hear from in future episodes. You can connect with me on Instagram at Original Being Podcast, and be sure to follow, like, and share the podcast on all platforms to help spread the word. Thanks for listening.